Have you ever wanted to read Asian fantasy but felt overwhelmed by unfamiliar names, genres, mythology? Maybe you have heard words like chi energy, sword intent, yokai, and thought, wow, that sounds intriguing, but I don't know where to start. Don't worry, today we will talk about books that are accessible for everyone, even if you are not familiar with the Asian culture or mythology, but want to start reading Asian fantasy without feeling overwhelmed. And our first book is The Scum Villain's Safe Saving System. So we follow a modern reader who dies and is unexpectedly transported into a world of a fantasy novel he hates, and actually he died cursing it, which led to him transmigrating as the villain and getting the system to force him to change the plot to avoid his character's terrible death. Basically, this system is a mission-given entity, as in computer games, that transports our reader into the novel Proud Immortal Demon Ways as the villain. So his goal is to survive by changing the plot while navigating the system's rules, and fix a poorly written novel by being nice to the protagonist. Which is quite funny because in the original novel he was cruel and abusive to the main character, which led our villain to a horrible fate of being killed and tortured by original vengeful main protagonist. I have heard that some consider this story the weakest from author's 3 published works because it's her debut novel. She also wrote Heaven's Official Blessing and Grandmaster of the Demonic Cultivation. But I love this story as much as I love Heaven's Official Blessing. It's just the voice and the tone of this novel is completely different, and in my opinion, that's what makes it unique. The book constantly shifts between chaotic humor, self-aware parody, and emotional pain with surprisingly heartfelt moments. You are laughing at our villains in a monologue, then emotionally devastated, then laughing again in 2 seconds. It's basically a love letter and roast of novels, overpowered protagonists, poorly written stories, reader complaints, and villain tropes. Our villain's inner commentary reads like a Reddit thread or a fandom meme. To be honest, it's my favorite type of narrator. His voice is sharp and cynical, sarcastic, genre savvy, always complaining, and very like, I'm too old for this nonsense. The tone is not trying to be epic or lyrical. Instead, it's funny, smart, and self-aware. And that's what makes it stand out. It begins as a comedy, but then you suddenly realize that you care. And the shift from parody to genuine emotional connection is so smooth, you barely notice it's happening. What I also like is author's light-hearted tone in a dark world. We have cruelty, obsessions, betrayal, demonic transformations, but the tone rarely becomes heavy. I think this is the story that can cheer you up during your own dark times. And the reason why I think it's a great entry point for those who are new to Asian fantasy is that it introduces core Chinese fantasy concepts in a fun way. And if you don't know what cultivation or golden core means, the story explains them naturally through our main character's struggles. You see common Asian fantasy elements like sect hierarchies, magic systems, revenge plots, and reincarnation, but in a light-hearted, self-aware way. You learn the vocabulary and tropes without being overwhelmed because the humor keeps the story approachable. The novel constantly explains and marks common tropes like overpowered heroes, tragic backgrounds, villain misunderstandings, and system rules. For someone new to Asian fantasy, this is like a gentle crash course. You get the ideas while laughing at them. Instead of being lost in world building or cultural references, you are guided along with our hero's sarcastic commentary. The novel has enough tropes from Chinese fantasy to feel authentic, but the story is told in a modern, humorous, relatable way. This makes it less intimidating than some historical-based novels. It's chaotic, witty, and humorous. Even readers who avoid dense fantasy and cultural-heavy novels enjoyed it. It's very engaging and keeps you reading, which is perfect for first-time Asian fantasy readers. Alright, so our next book, Heaven's Official Blessing, is written by the same author who had created the Scum villain's safe-saving system. But the tone and the voice of the story is completely different. It's very lyrical and poetic. The story follows a former crown prince who has ascended to godhood at a very young age. He fell from grace twice due to misfortune and tragedy, and now is considered an embarrassment among the gods. After 800 years, he ascends to heaven for the third time as a minor heavenly official with no money, no temple, no followers, and a reputation for bad luck. Despite everything, he remains kind, compassionate, and gentle, even when the world has been cruel to him. As a heavenly official, he is sent on a mission to solve supernatural problems affecting humans, haunted villages, vengeful spirits, and cursed places. Each mission slowly reveals secrets about the world, hidden histories of gods and ghosts, and our main character's own painful past. Along the way, he meets mysterious and powerful Ghost King, who is feared by gods, is immensely strong, sharp-tongued, confident, and devoted. The story focuses on choosing kindness even when it hurts, faith in oneself, being seen and loved for who you truly are. It's as much about emotional survival as it is about supernatural adventure. I have found a great description of Heaven's Official Blessing in one sentence. A fallen god and a feared ghost walk through the ruins of the past together, helping the living, uncovering old wounds, and choosing love and kindness in a cruel world. And why I think this is a beginner-friendly story. The fantasy concepts, gods, ghosts, heavens, spiritual power, cultivation, are introduced slowly and naturally. You don't need prior knowledge of Chinese mythology to follow the story. Explanations are woven into the narrative instead of dumped all at once. You learn how Chinese fantasy worlds work as you read without feeling lost. The world is familiar but still magical. The setting combines heavenly realms, mortal kingdoms, ghost domains. These feel fantastical, but the structure is easy to understand. In heaven, we have gods and officials. In mortal realm, humans. In ghost realm, spirits and resentment. The clear structure makes the fantasy world easy to navigate, even if it's your first Asian fantasy novel. Our main character is a deeply human protagonist. He has flaws, he is resilient despite repeated failures, and you don't need cultural context to understand heartbreak, hope, devotion. So even if the fantasy elements are new, the emotions are instantly relatable. Heaven's Official Blessing does not rely on knowing genre tropes and works even if you have never read xianxia or danmei novels before. It's written like a classic epic fantasy, quest, mysteries, tragic past, redemption arcs. And why this helps beginners? You can enjoy it as a straightforward fantasy story, then later recognize how it fits into broader Asian fantasy traditions. After reading Heaven's Official Blessing, you will already understand gods and immortals, cultivation concepts, spiritual power, heavenly hierarchies. So, to sum up, Heaven's Official Blessing is beginner-friendly because it introduces Chinese fantasy concepts gently, focuses on universal emotions, offers a soft introduction to Danmei, doesn't require prior genre knowledge, balances beauty, emotion, and accessibility. The next one, Shadow of the Fox, is also great for beginners to Asian fantasy. The novel is inspired by Japanese folklore, kitsune, demons, gods, and sacred scrolls. But it never assumes you already know what those are. Every concept is introduced naturally through the characters and the plot. You learn as you go without confusion. You never made to feel like an outsider. The book guides you instead of testing you. At the heart of the story is the Scroll of 1,000 Prayers, a legendary artifact said to grant any wish when all its pieces are brought together. Naturally, everyone wants it, but for very different reasons. Our main character, Yumeko, is cheerful, kind, and seemingly naive, but she's also a kitsune, a fox spirit, known for illusion and trickery. She was raised by monks in an isolated temple, where she learned to hide her half kitsune and to protect the scroll fragment. But when her home is destroyed, Yumiko is forced into the outside world for the first time. This sets her on a journey to deliver the scroll piece to safety. She isn't a traditional chosen one. She's unsure, emotional, and learns as she goes. On her journey, she meets Tatsumi, a young demon slayer who is sworn to a secretive and morally dark order. Basically, he is committed to destroy the very thing Yumiko is. Tatsumi is tasked with collecting the scroll fragments, even if it means killing the person who carries them. What's powerful about Tatsumi's character is the tension between his rigid beliefs and the reality he encounters. He's disciplined, loyal, and bound by a secret oath of obtaining a scroll of 1,000 prayers, and sacrifice himself to seal the great Kami dragon. Tatsumi's uniqueness lies in his unwavering sense of honor, even if it brings him pain. But as the story unfolds, his rigid beliefs are challenged. Traveling with Yumiko forces him to confront a terrifying question. What if the enemy I was taught to hate isn't evil at all? Tatsumi's journey is about learning that morality isn't just black and white. His struggle between duty and compassion makes him one of the most emotionally complex characters in the novel. And what makes Yumiko unique isn't just her magical heritage, it's her choice to remain kind in the dangerous world. Kitsune are known for deception, illusion, trickery, yet Yumiko actively avoids using magic for harm. Instead, she clings to stories, friendship, and hope. Her internal struggle is powerful. She fears becoming the monster others expect her to be. Yumiko represents the idea that identity is not defined by blood or destiny, but by values. If you have read Western fantasy before, this book will feel comforting. It has a clear quest, a group of travelers, and rising stakes. So even if the mythology is new, the storytelling structure isn't. And why this matters? Your brain already understands how the story works. It just gets to enjoy a new cultural flavor. The story is inspired by feudal Japan, but the author doesn't overload you with history lessons, cultural explanations, complex politics. Instead, you get roads, temples, villages, monsters. Everything is easy to picture. And why this matters? because you got immersed without feeling that you need to study the setting first. It uses Japanese mythology in a very accessible way. Our main character, Yumiko, may be a fox, but she's incredibly human. She's kind, unsure who to trust, and trying to do the right thing. Her emotional journey is something any reader can connect to. And when you connect to the character, the fantasy elements become more easier to follow and more enjoyable. The writing is clear, fast-paced and accessible, and that makes it especially good if you are new to Asian fantasy. Our next story, the Dallergut Dream Department Store. At the center of the story is a mysterious department store where dreams are bought, sold, and carefully crafted. These dreams range from joyful and nostalgic, adventurous, strange, or even emotionally healing. The story follows Penny, a young woman who gets a job at the store. As an employee, she learns how dreams are made, how customers choose them, and how deeply dreams can affect humans in the waking world. Rather than focusing on battles or villains, the novel explores everyday emotions through magical experiences. What people long for, what they regret, and what they need in order to move forward. One reason this book is such a great entry point into the Asian fantasy is that it blends the familiar with the fantastical. Most of us understand department stores, jobs, customers, co-workers. By placing these everyday concepts into a dream-based world, the story feels immediately approachable, even for those who have never explored Asian literature before. Instead of throwing complex lore at you, the novel gently invites you into its magic. If you need soft, cozy fantasy instead of high stakes, this story is for you. Unlike many fantasy novels filled with wars, prophecies, and world-ending threats, the Dallergut department store focuses on small, meaningful moments. This style, often called cozy fantasy, is common in Asian storytelling. The magic exists to explore emotions, relationships, and personal growth rather than conquest or power. Each chapter feels like a small window into someone's inner world, showing how dreams can bring comfort, courage, and closure. For new readers, this makes the book comforting rather than intimidating. Here you find emotional depth over complex mythology. Asian fantasy is often rooted in emotional and philosophical themes, and this novel is a perfect example. Instead of needing prior knowledge of Korean folklore, readers connect through universal feelings. Joy, hope, longing, regret. Each dream reveals something about dreamers' inner world. This emotional accessibility allows readers to appreciate Asian fantasy without feeling lost. Also, the novel has an episodic structure which is easy to follow. The book is structured as a series of interconnected stories rather than one long, complicated plot. Each chapter introduces new customers, dreams, and lessons, making it easy to read at your own pace. You can pause, reflect, and return without forgetting important details. This format is ideal for readers transitioning from contemporary fiction into fantasy. Here we have a gentle introduction into Korean storytelling style, and Korean fantasy often emphasizes atmosphere, warmth, and reflection. The Dallergut department store captures it beautifully through its calm pacing, whimsical tone, and focus on kindness. Rather than pushing spectacle, it encourages introspection. For first-time readers of Asian fantasy, this book acts as a bridge, introducing cultural storytelling rhythms without overwhelming detail.